How ants build cities without ever planning them. Deep underground, millions of tiny builders move in silence, shaping vast cities without a blueprint or a leader. Each tunnel, chamber, and passage seems intentional, yet no single ant knows the plan. Scientists have uncovered that these structures emerge from countless small choices, guided only by local signals like scent trails and the presence of neighbors. What looks like chaos is in fact a hidden order, a living architecture that rivals our most advanced designs. This video uncovers how ants achieve such complexity without ever planning it, and why their silent cities may hold lessons for us. How do creatures with no central command create something so complex? And what does it reveal about the hidden mathematics of life itself? The hidden architects beneath our feet. Beneath a quiet stretch of soil, a hidden world stirs with movement. To the human eye, the ground may seem still, but just below the surface, thousands of tiny creatures are at work, shaping a structure far more complex than it appears. These are ants, creatures that live in shadows most of the time. Yet their efforts create vast networks that few people ever witness in their entirety. If you were to slice the earth open like a cross-section, the scale of their work would come into view. Tunnels stretch in many directions, some narrow and twisting, others broad enough for dozens of ants to pass. Chambers open like hidden rooms, their walls polished smooth by countless tiny legs. The site resembles a city carved in miniature, yet no architect has drawn a single line. The ants simply build, one grain of soil at a time, and somehow, the result holds together with striking precision. Scientists who study these colonies often use casts of plaster or metal to reveal their full design. They pour liquid into the entrances of abandoned nests, then dig the solid form out once it hardens. What emerges is a sculpture of astonishing beauty, with branches that spread like the roots of a tree and central spaces that resemble crowded halls. These casts have been made in fields and forests across many continents, and each one shows the same truth. Ants create cities beneath us, even if we rarely notice. The most surprising fact is that none of these ants carries a plan in their heads. No leader is calling the shots, no blueprint passed from one generation to another. Instead, the city takes shape from countless small actions, each ant responding to the world immediately around it. One ant senses a current of air and digs in a certain direction. Another finds loose soil and decides to clear it. A third follows a trail left by others, adding her effort to the same task. Out of these simple choices, the shape of the colony slowly emerges. To understand the scale of their work, consider how far some colonies extend. In parts of South America, leafcutter ants carve out chambers the size of basketballs, linking them with a web of tunnels that can stretch for dozens of meters. The waste from their cutting and farming creates piles outside the nest that rise like miniature hills. Each hill is only the tip of what lies below, the surface sign of an underground network that rivals human subway systems in length and design. Even in places closer to home, the story is much the same. In temperate forests and grasslands, ants build multi-level nests that regulate temperature and moisture with surprising efficiency. Some tunnels angle upward, acting as chimneys to vent stale air. Others reach deeper layers where soil stays cool, perfect for storing food or raising young. These functions are not planned, but arise as a natural result of many ants digging, responding to the needs of the colony moment by moment. For researchers, the most remarkable element is the speed at which these cities can rise. In laboratory studies, ants introduced into fresh soil begin shaping tunnels within hours. By the next day, they have formed chambers and pathways that organize the space into clear zones of work and rest. No individual ant could describe the larger structure, yet together they achieve it in a fraction of the time a human crew would take to build something of comparable size on their own scale. This hidden labor has been unfolding for millions of years. Fossil evidence shows ants thriving as early as the Cretaceous period, more than 90 million years ago. Since then, they have spread across nearly every environment on Earth, carrying with them the same instinct to build beneath the surface. What we see today is the result of deep evolutionary refinement, each generation repeating a cycle of digging, shaping, and adapting that has perfected their underground craft. The next time you notice a faint mound of soil near your feet, it may be worth pausing to think of what lies below. That mound is often only the entrance to a much larger city, a gateway through which thousands pass each day as they move between light and dark. It is easy to dismiss ants as small and unimportant, but their hidden cities remind us that even the tiniest workers can leave behind monumental results. We walk above their world without noticing, yet their world continues to grow, layer by layer, carrying secrets that still wait to be uncovered. Life without blueprints. At first glance, the world of ants seems chaotic. Streams of workers rush in every direction, some carrying food, others hauling soil, and many simply passing by. There are no signs of organization, no instructions being handed down, and yet within this swarm, something remarkable is taking place. Out of what looks like disorder, structure is quietly forming. Researchers who have watched colonies develop notice that the absence of a leader does not mean the absence of order. Ants never receive a master plan or map, yet their actions add up to something that works with stunning efficiency. Each individual behaves according to simple cues, such as the smell of a chemical trail or the feel of loose soil under their legs. The larger pattern of the nest comes into existence because thousands of ants repeat these tiny steps again and again. The contrast with human building is striking. When people raise a skyscraper or a bridge, they rely on architects' drawings and engineering codes. The structure only takes shape once a vision has been laid out in detail. Ants do none of this. Their cities are not conceived in advance, but are instead the natural result of constant activity, where every adjustment responds directly to the environment at that moment. One striking example comes from studies on harvester ants in the deserts of the American Southwest. Scientists observed how new tunnels appear when ants encounter open space or softer soil. If a passage proves useful, more ants follow and extend it further. If it leads to a dead end or becomes unstable, it is abandoned. Over time, a web of tunnels forms, shaped not by foresight, but by trial and response. The result is a system that is both functional and adaptive. The absence of blueprints also allows for remarkable flexibility. When conditions shift, ants can rapidly change their behavior without needing to rewrite a plan. Floodwaters may block a chamber, or heat may rise to dangerous levels in the upper layers of the nest. In such cases, workers immediately begin digging elsewhere, creating new routes or moving brood to safer spots. The lack of fixed instructions means the colony can react quickly to whatever the environment demands. For humans, this kind of building without foresight is difficult to imagine. Our methods depend on prediction and design, tools that allow us to picture an end goal before construction begins. Ants, however, never picture the whole. Each one focuses on its immediate surroundings, and the colony as a whole adapts with surprising speed. What emerges is an intricate system that looks planned even though it never was. This way of building has drawn interest far beyond biology. Computer scientists and engineers study how ant colonies organize themselves because the same principles can apply to complex systems. In the late 1980s, French researcher Jean-Louis Deneubourg and his colleagues showed how simple behavioral rules could produce sophisticated group patterns in ants. Their work helped inspire algorithms that today manage traffic flow on networks and optimize delivery routes. What began as a question about insect behavior became a model for solving modern human problems. The absence of blueprints does not mean the absence of intelligence. Rather, it suggests a different kind of intelligence, one that emerges from countless small choices instead of a single guiding mind. In an ant colony, intelligence is distributed. It is not stored in a leader or in written plans, but shared across thousands of tiny workers who act independently yet remain connected through constant signals. This distributed intelligence shows itself in the way colonies expand over time. A small nest may start with only a few tunnels, but as the population grows, new chambers are added and passages lengthen. No moment arrives when the ants stop and reconsider their design. Expansion simply continues as the colony's needs shift. The city underfoot is always unfinished, always changing, always responsive. For those who study these patterns, the most captivating aspect is how predictable results arise from unpredictable actions. Each ant can make a mistake, turning the wrong way or dropping soil in the wrong place, but the collective system absorbs these errors. In fact, small mistakes may even lead to creative solutions. uncovering new routes or chambers that improve the overall nest. Perfection is not necessary. What matters is persistence. The idea of building without a plan challenges our sense of control. We are used to thinking that great structures demand great vision, yet ants remind us that another path exists, one where complexity grows naturally out of countless simple moves. Their cities stand as proof that a blueprint is not always required to create order. And still, watching them at work raises an unsettling question. If creatures so small can build thriving cities without ever planning them, what else might be possible when order comes from the bottom up rather than the top down? The language of pheromone. A trail of ants winding across a forest floor may look like a silent march, but to them, it is a conversation written in chemicals. Each step leaves behind a faint trace of scent, invisible to us but vital to them. These signals are called pheromones, and they form the foundation of how ants share information, organize labor, and keep their colonies alive. What makes pheromones remarkable is their variety. Ants can produce dozens of different chemicals, each carrying its own meaning. Some announce food, others mark danger, while a few guide workers toward new nest sites. Unlike sound or sight, which fade quickly or require direct contact, pheromones linger in the air or on the ground, allowing messages to spread far beyond the individual who released them. Scientists studying ants in the mid-20th century began to uncover the power of these signals through experiments with food trails. Researchers placed drops of sugar solution on a surface and released a few ants nearby. Once the first discoverers returned to the nest, they laid down a chemical path, and soon hundreds followed in a single line. This simple test revealed that ants do not just wander, they are guided by a language invisible to our senses. The most famous example of this communication can be seen in Argentine ants, an invasive species that has spread across multiple continents. These ants lay persistent pheromone trails that allow vast colonies to coordinate movement across enormous areas. In California, for instance, their chemical messages have supported super colonies stretching hundreds of kilometers, with ants from distant nests cooperating as though they were part of a single city. The scale of coordination would be impossible without pheromones binding them together. But pheromones are not only about food, they also manage the alarm. When danger appears, such as a predator disturbing the nest, ants release chemicals that trigger instant responses. One molecule can cause workers to rush toward the threat, jaws open, while another might signal retreat into the safety of the tunnels. These reactions unfold within seconds, transforming a calm colony into a defensive force without a single spoken command. Another fascinating use comes during nest relocation. When a colony needs to move, scouts search for new sites and mark potential routes with pheromones. If enough ants reinforce a particular path, the trail grows stronger, and soon the entire colony begins to migrate. What seems like a collective decision emerges from countless individual ants responding to chemical cues, each one amplifying the message of the others. The complexity of this chemical language has drawn interest from chemists and biologists alike. In the 1960s, Edward O. Wilson and his colleagues at Harvard helped identify and analyze specific pheromones in ants, opening the door to understanding how social insects coordinate their societies. Their research showed that these chemicals are not random signals, but precise tools, each molecule finely tuned by millions of years of evolution. One reason pheromones are so effective is that they rely on the sensitivity of an ant's antennae. These delicate organs can detect incredibly small amounts of chemical traces, sometimes just a few molecules. Antennae constantly sweep the air and the ground, gathering streams of information invisible to our senses. To an ant, the world is filled with chemical signposts pointing to food, danger, and duty. The temporary nature of pheromone trails also plays a crucial role. Trails fade with time, which prevents ants from following outdated information. If a food source disappears, the scent leading to it gradually weakens, and workers stop wasting energy in that direction. This built-in system of renewal ensures that the colony stays focused on the most useful resources. For humans, pheromone communication may seem alien, yet the principles it relies on echo our own methods of sharing information. Just as we leave signs, signals, and markers in our environments, ants depend on chemical footprints to guide one another. Their trails are a record of collective memory, written directly onto the ground they walk upon. Studying these patterns has even influenced technology. Engineers designing robotic swarms and search algorithms often borrow from ant pheromone systems. By simulating trails that grow stronger with use and fade with time, machines can solve problems of navigation and resource allocation. What ants discovered through evolution is now shaping human inventions in computing and robotics. Still, for all the scientific advances, the richness of this chemical language remains partly hidden. We know many of the molecules involved, but the full dictionary of ant communication has yet to be translated. Each species seems to have its own dialect, its own unique blend of signals, and unlocking them continues to challenge researchers. The ground beneath our feet may seem silent, but to ants, it is alive with messages that we cannot see or smell, a chemical chorus that guides them through every decision they make. Rules written in instinct. A single ant does not wake up with a plan. It does not weigh options or sketch designs. Yet when thousands of ants work side by side, order emerges. What drives them forward are rules buried so deep in their biology that no individual questions or alters them. These are instincts, patterns of behavior that guide everything from digging to defending, without the need for thought. Field observations often show how simple these rules appear at the level of one ant. If an ant encounters a pile of loose soil, it picks up a grain and carries it away. If it meets a strong scent of pheromone, it follows the trail. If it brushes against another ant carrying food, it is more likely to change direction and join the effort. Each action is basic, but the repetition of these actions across thousands of ants creates complex systems. Biologists describe this process as self-organization. In the 1990s, researchers such as Deborah Gordon at Stanford University demonstrated how colonies could maintain intricate social structures without central control. She observed harvester ants in Arizona, where workers regulate foraging based not on commands, but on simple encounters. When more ants return with food, more leave the nest to gather, and when fewer return, the activity slows. The rule is consistent and instinctive, yet it adjusts the colony's labor to fit changing conditions. Instinctive rules also determine how ants divide labor. In many species, certain workers focus on guarding, while others dig or feed the young. This separation of roles is not directed by orders, but triggered by internal cues such as age or physical condition. Younger ants often stay inside to tend brood, while older ants venture outside to forage, a pattern that reduces risk to the most vital members of the colony. No single ant decides this arrangement, yet instinct ensures that essential tasks are covered. The architecture of nests also reflects instinctive rules. Studies of fire ants, for example, reveal that tunnel angles often follow consistent patterns, with shafts branching at predictable degrees. The ants are not aware of geometry, yet their repeated movements lead to structures that distribute weight evenly and allow efficient circulation of air. What might look like engineering is, in truth, instinct executed countless times. Instinct even shapes how colonies respond to threats. When an intruder disturbs the nest, workers react according to predetermined behaviors. Some species charge forward aggressively, while others retreat and seal the entrance. These responses differ between species, but remain consistent within each colony, suggesting that they are hardwired rather than learned. The survival of the colony depends on these inherited strategies unfolding instantly and without hesitation. What makes these instinctive rules powerful is how they interact. A single rule may appear limited, but when combined with others, the results scale into behaviors that look intelligent. Digging, following trails, exchanging food, and reacting to touch all overlap, reinforcing and redirecting one another. This interaction allows ants to shift seamlessly between building, foraging, and defending, as if the colony itself were a single living organism. Some experiments have tested the limits of these instincts by disrupting familiar conditions. In one study, researchers altered the terrain around an ant nest to see how workers adapted. The ants did not stop or panic. Instead, their instinctive rules led them to explore new routes, gradually establishing paths around the obstacles. While no individual had foresight, the colony adjusted as though guided by collective reasoning. Instinct also ensures continuity across generations. When a queen starts a new colony, her offspring instinctively adopt the same behaviors seen in mature nests. There is no teacher, no transmission of knowledge, yet the patterns of labor and construction appear as soon as enough workers are present. The blueprint exists within their biology, carried forward by genes shaped through millions of years of evolution. This reliance on instinct has limits. Ants can be deceived by artificial pheromones or drawn into loops where they follow each other endlessly, unable to escape. These failures show that while instinct is powerful, it is not perfect. Still, the resilience of colonies demonstrates how effective, simple, consistent rules can be when multiplied across thousands of individuals. What emerges from these rules is not the brilliance of any single ant, but the strength of the group. Instinct acts as the hidden script, ensuring order without thought, direction without leaders, and progress without planning. And yet, as one watches these instincts unfold in perfect rhythm, it is hard not to wonder how far such simple rules might reach if they were written into systems beyond the world of ants. The power of local decisions. In the depths below, there is no blueprint pinned to the soil, no single ant carrying instructions that explain how a nest should look. What takes shape is the result of countless tiny reactions, each one made by a creature no larger than a grain of rice. This process reveals one of nature's most striking lessons. Massive structures can rise from the smallest choices, if those choices are repeated often enough by thousands of workers. An ant walking through a tunnel does not pause to consider the bigger picture of the colony. Instead, it reacts to what it finds directly in front of it. If the soil feels loose, it may dig. If the space seems too crowded, it shifts its path. When another ant brushes past carrying soil in the same direction, that ant becomes part of the signal too. In these simple local exchanges, the seed of architecture is hidden. Scientists studying harvester ants in the deserts of the American Southwest have found that no overseer is needed to coordinate the excavation of vast networks. Each ant digs only where it senses loose grains. Over time, those small decisions carve out chambers, link corridors, and form ventilation shafts. The colony breathes because thousands of ants follow nothing more than the feel of soil between their jaws. Food foraging offers another window into this decentralized power. An ant does not know the exact location of the next meal. It steps forward, leaving a thin trail of pheromone behind. If it stumbles across a seed or crumb, it carries a piece back and thickens the trail. Other ants, crossing this line, turn and follow. Without central orders, a living supply chain is born, branching outward across the ground, sometimes stretching for hundreds of meters. When one path grows crowded or barren, the workers adjust in real time. An ant meeting an empty trail will soon abandon it, while another finding a richer source will recruit more travelers. The colony, without ever gathering to discuss, shifts its collective effort to where it matters most. Each ant acts from what it touches, smells, or sees, and together those fragments of perception form an intelligence that guides the whole. Nest ventilation depends on the same principle. No ant can sense the full flow of air through a labyrinth of tunnels, yet by widening exits where they feel stronger currents, and by depositing soil where air feels stagnant, they gradually sculpt openings that draw wind inside. Colonies that succeed breathe more easily, keeping temperatures stable in scorching heat or sudden storms. The airflow emerges not from foresight, but from endless small corrections. This pattern is not unique to one species. Leafcutter ants in South America carry bits of vegetation along crowded highways that can stretch far from their nests. Traffic jams are avoided not by a traffic controller, but by tiny decisions. When two ants collide, one shifts slightly to the side. Multiply this by thousands of encounters, and the lanes of traffic appear smooth and efficient, as if drawn by design. Researchers comparing these behaviors to computer algorithms often marvel at their efficiency. The colony behaves like a distributed system, where no single unit knows the plan, but the whole operates as if guided by hidden rules. These rules are not written in parchment or carved in stone, but are embedded in instinct, sharpened by millions of years of survival. What makes this so powerful is its resilience. If a predator crushes one part of the nest or a rainstorm washes away a trail, there is no leader left scrambling to reorganize. The ants near the damage simply respond to what they encounter. Some dig a new path, Others carry soil to block flooding, while foragers scatter until they find a new route. Recovery is woven into the system because every ant can adjust locally. To human eyes, this looks like order rising out of chaos. In truth, it is order born from repetition, from countless local choices layered upon one another until patterns emerge. The city of ants exists because no single worker tries to see the whole picture, yet together they form something far larger than themselves. And somewhere in that soil, as one ant drops a grain beside another, the silent power of local decisions continues to shape a world we are only beginning to understand. The tunnel builders at work. The sound is almost too faint for human ears to notice. Tiny mandibles scraping against soil, grain by grain. Deep underground, thousands of ants are busy at a task that never seems to end. Their movements are steady and relentless, carving passageways through the earth, transforming solid ground into a living labyrinth. Each stroke of their jaws adds to a network that expands in silence, unseen until scientists bring it to light. One striking observation came from experiments where researchers placed colonies inside clear containers filled with soil. The walls revealed the hidden patterns as tunnels snaked downward and outward. What seemed random at first soon displayed a striking geometry. Angled shafts branched into chambers, and narrow corridors intersected in ways that improved both airflow and strength. The ants worked without hesitation, as if the structure already existed within the soil, waiting to be uncovered. Digging is not random scratching. Each ant grips a small clump of earth, pulls it free, and carries it toward the surface or deposits it in another chamber. Others quickly clear the way, preventing blockages. When trails become crowded, workers shift direction, forming alternate routes that reduce jams. The process looks like traffic control, though no overseer is present. The efficiency emerges from repetition and adjustment, as thousands perform the same simple task in different places. Moisture plays a quiet but powerful role in shaping these tunnels. Soil that is too dry crumbles easily, collapsing before it can hold. If it is too wet, it sticks and becomes heavy. Ants seem to sense the balance, preferring the right texture for digging and reinforcing. Their choices create walls that stand firm, keeping passages intact even as the colony grows larger. This awareness is not conscious planning, but sensitivity built into their bodies. Ventilation is another invisible concern solved by design. As tunnels deepen, air can grow stale, threatening the colony's survival. Ants respond by widening shafts that connect to the surface, or by digging secondary exits. Warm air rising through certain passages pulls in cooler air from others, creating circulation. The result is an underground system that breathes like a lung, maintained entirely by creatures who do not know the concept of air pressure. The speed of excavation often surprises researchers. In controlled studies, colonies have been shown to remove thousands of soil particles within hours. Each ant's load is small, yet the collective pace is relentless. Over days, entire chambers appear where only packed earth once existed. What humans would call a construction project unfolds continuously, powered by stamina that seems tireless. The effort never halts, because the colony's needs never stop growing. Some species go further, creating tunnels that are more than simple paths. Leafcutter ants, for instance, dig deep vertical shafts that lead to chambers where they cultivate fungus. These gardens depend on stable conditions, and the surrounding tunnels provide insulation. By placing chambers at different depths, the ants control temperature and humidity with remarkable precision. Such architecture is a response to necessity, yet it rivals the ingenuity of engineered systems. The stability of these subterranean structures has drawn attention from engineers. Studies comparing ant tunnels to human-built supports show that branching angles and chamber spacing often prevent collapse. The ants, through trial over evolutionary time, have discovered patterns that mirror principles of civil engineering. Their designs distribute stress and allow safe passage even as the population swells. What looks like instinct-driven digging is in practice a blueprint honed by survival. Collaboration is constant in this process. When one ant drops its load, another quickly moves it farther, extending the chain. If a blockage appears, workers switch roles, some clearing while others dig elsewhere. The activity shifts like waves, flexible and continuous. No single worker has the complete plan, Yet the collective behavior ensures that progress never stalls for long. What these tunnel builders achieve is more than shelter. They create an environment that supports food storage, raises young, and defends against predators. Each passageway is both a road and a wall, both a defense and a lifeline. From the outside, the colony appears to vanish into a small hole in the ground. But beneath that point lies a city shaped entirely by labor too small for the eye to follow in real time. Still, the scraping continues, mandibles cutting and carrying, as the earth beneath our feet is rewritten by builders who will never see the scale of what they have made. Chambers of purpose. A mound at the surface may look plain, but beneath it lies a series of rooms that function like organs in a living body. Each chamber has a role, and together they keep the colony alive. The walls are bare soil, yet the layout is carefully shaped by instinct and need. Step inside through the narrow tunnels, and the earth divides itself into spaces of striking order. Some of the first chambers near the entrance are often used as storage sites. Workers haul seeds, dried insects, and other food into these vaults, arranging them in clusters that allow easy access. If the colony is threatened, guards can quickly block these openings, sealing in the reserves. In this way, a simple hollow in the dirt becomes a pantry that can decide whether the colony survives lean times. In some colonies, certain storage chambers even hold different types of seeds, which workers sort by size or hardness, showing a level of organization that prevents food from spoiling too quickly. Deeper underground, the design shifts toward chambers that nurture life. These are the brood rooms, where eggs, larvae, and pupae rest in groups that workers constantly move according to temperature and humidity. If the soil cools, the young are carried upward. If it warms, they are moved down. The space acts like a nursery, yet no ant understands the full picture. Instead, countless small decisions turn bare soil into a cradle of generations. Not all chambers hold food or young. Some are dedicated to farming. Leafcutter ants, for example, maintain fungus gardens in special underground vaults. Workers cut leaves from above ground, carry them below, and place them in these rooms, where fungus grows on the plant matter. The chamber's shape and depth help regulate conditions so the fungus thrives. What appears to be a patch of earth is in truth a farm, hidden in darkness. Air and heat present constant challenges underground, and special rooms help balance them. Ventilation shafts may lead to wider pockets where air slows and mixes, allowing the colony to manage temperature and moisture. These chambers do not store or protect, but instead act as regulators, stabilizing the living environment. Without them, the city would stifle and collapse from within. The queen often occupies her own chamber, a space set apart from the bustle. It is larger than most and surrounded by guards and attendants. Here she lays thousands of eggs, her life devoted to reproduction. The chamber functions as both a sanctuary and a production center, for the colony depends entirely on the queen's output. Its placement deep underground shields her from predators and sudden shifts in the outside world. The layout of chambers also provides defense. When intruders break into the colony, ants can retreat into specific rooms or block off passageways leading to sensitive areas. Chambers near the surface may serve as sacrificial zones, easily abandoned if invaded. Those lower down remain intact, protecting the brood and the queen. This layered arrangement turns soil into both shelter and fortress. Over time, chambers are abandoned, reshaped, or expanded. Old brood rooms may become storage sites, while unused food vaults may collapse and be sealed. The city is never static. It shifts as the colony grows, as seasons change, and as external pressures demand adjustment. What seems permanent is in fact flexible, always responding to the needs of the moment. Scientific studies using plaster casts of colonies have revealed the scale of this hidden complexity. When researchers filled tunnels with liquid plaster and dug away the soil, what emerged was a branching network of chambers connected by passageways that reached astonishing depths. Each chamber served a role, forming a pattern that looked deliberate, though it arose from instinctive behavior alone. The beauty of these chambers lies in their invisibility. To the human eye, only the surface mound is visible, often overlooked in a field or forest. Beneath it, however, rooms of purpose hum with activity, every hollow filled with meaning. What appears as simple soil is in fact a structure as intricate as any city we know. Within those darkened halls, Decisions continue to shape rooms that few will ever see, yet each carries the weight of the colony's survival. Traffic without chaos. Rain falls on a forest clearing, and yet thousands of ants continue moving as if nothing could disturb them. The ground trembles slightly under their numbers, but not a single collision slows the stream. From above, the lines curve and cross like living rivers, constantly shifting but never breaking. It looks almost choreographed, yet no conductor exists. Observers often notice that ant trails resemble highways designed by unseen engineers. Columns of workers stream in opposite directions, each one carrying food, soil, or leaves, but none appear lost. When two streams meet, they weave through each other without hesitation, as though every ant already knows the rules. For scientists, this raises a pressing question. How can so many creatures move in perfect order without any leader or traffic lights? Part of the answer lies in chemistry. Ants release pheromones that cling to the ground, forming invisible tracks others can follow. A drop of scent left by one worker can guide dozens more to a food source, thickening the trail with every pass. Stronger chemical signals draw heavier traffic, while fading ones allow paths to disappear. In this way, the network reorganizes itself constantly, balancing demand and supply like a living map. Yet chemistry alone cannot explain the grace of movement. Studies have shown that ants adjust their pace when trails grow crowded. Rather than forcing their way forward, they slow just enough to keep gaps open. This prevents pileups that would block the path. What looks like instinct is in fact a finely tuned response to pressure, honed through millions of years of collective trial and error. Crowding does not paralyze them, even in extreme conditions. In experiments, researchers placed obstacles directly across busy trails. Instead of chaos, ants quickly formed bypass lanes, with some climbing over the barrier while others curved around it. Within minutes, the flow re-established itself as though the obstacle had never been there. Such adaptability reveals a system that values the group's efficiency more than the individual's hurry. Army ants in Central America sometimes form massive living columns that stretch for hundreds of meters, with traffic flowing so smoothly that scientists compare them to moving conveyor belts. Leafcutter ants in South America add another layer of complexity. Their trails stretch for many meters, filled with workers hauling leaf fragments many times their size. To avoid blockages, smaller workers often run alongside the carriers, clearing debris and smoothing the path. This teamwork creates a moving road crew, ensuring that the march continues unbroken from forest to nest. Fire ants display a different strategy when the terrain becomes dangerous. When water floods their foraging routes, they link their bodies into bridges or rafts, letting traffic continue across unstable ground. Each ant shifts position as needed, strengthening weak spots while others walk across. This living structure shows how movement itself becomes construction, turning traffic into architecture. The scale of coordination becomes even clearer at trail intersections. Where two paths cross, ants do not stop or yield in the human sense. Instead, they angle their bodies slightly, slipping past one another with remarkable precision. Collisions are rare because each ant responds to tiny touches and vibrations, adjusting in fractions of a second. In effect, the trail policies itself without the need for hierarchy. Researchers studying Argentine ants in California found that these insects can redirect entire streams of workers within minutes when food sources change, proving that their traffic patterns are as flexible as they are efficient. Human engineers have taken notice of these natural systems. Computer models inspired by ant traffic are now used to design more efficient algorithms for internet routing and even public transportation. By mimicking how ants balance flow and avoid jams, cities hope to manage buses, trains, and delivery trucks with fewer delays. The tiny bodies moving silently through the forest may hold answers to some of our largest urban challenges. Unanswered questions remain about the limits of this harmony. Ants thrive because their goals align completely. Every worker serves the colony's survival. In human societies, individual desires often clash with collective needs, making our traffic far harder to manage. Watching ants, we see not only a model of order, but also a mirror reflecting our own struggles with movement and space. On forest floors and sidewalks alike, their endless streams continue, unbroken and unsupervised, leaving us to wonder how such effortless order emerges from creatures so small. When cities breathe, The air inside an ant nest is never still. Deep underground, where sunlight cannot reach, and the soil presses heavy on every side, the colony faces a challenge that few creatures can solve: how to keep fresh air moving through a maze of chambers and corridors. Without a way to breathe, the life inside would collapse. Yet somehow, these underground cities remain full of oxygen and free of suffocating heat. Long before modern science began to measure airflow, naturalists noticed something unusual. They observed that many ant mounds, tall and conical on the surface, seemed to pulse with warmth when touched in the early morning or late evening. The soil held heat differently depending on where it faced the sun, and the ants appeared to have built structures that allowed these temperature shifts to push air in and out like a living lung. Studies in the late 20th century gave this observation a clearer form. Researchers discovered that some species, such as the redwood ant in Europe, arrange their mounds so that one side heats more quickly than the other. The warm side forces hot air upward, while the cooler side draws fresh air inward. What seems like a simple pile of dirt is actually a tool for controlling temperature and ventilation, designed not by a single mind, but by countless workers moving soil, grain by grain. In the Arizona desert, scientists studying harvester ants found another pattern. Their nests, which can reach several meters deep, contain vertical shafts that connect to wider chambers. As the air above the desert floor heats and cools, these shafts channel breezes downward. The deeper sections of the nest remain cooler than the surface, creating a natural cycle where warm air rises and cooler air flows to replace it. The ants do not understand physics, yet they benefit from an architectural solution that rivals human designs. The complexity is not only in the mounds or shafts. Some nests have multiple entrances scattered across the surface. These openings are not random. Each one contributes to circulation, acting like a vent. When wind brushes across the ground, it creates differences in air pressure at these points, pulling stale air out and sweeping fresh currents in. From above, the colony looks scattered. Below, it breathes as one. The survival of the colony depends on this exchange. Ants burn energy constantly, carrying food, tending larvae, and shaping soil. All of this requires oxygen. Without enough ventilation, carbon dioxide builds up quickly, especially in chambers filled with hundreds of workers. By keeping their nests alive with moving air, ants protect not only themselves, but also their most fragile members, the eggs and young that lie hidden in carefully guarded rooms. One striking case comes from fungus-growing ants in South America. Their underground gardens need more than oxygen. They need steady levels of heat and humidity to keep the fungus alive. The ants respond by adjusting the size of their openings, sometimes blocking one tunnel or clearing another. These actions are small, but together they fine-tune the environment of a vast subterranean farm. The result is a system that maintains stability despite constant change in the world above. The principle extends to flood-prone regions as well. In areas where heavy rains can drown nests, certain ant species construct tall turrets with multiple side holes. These structures keep water out while still allowing air to pass through. Even in danger, the colony does not lose its breath. Instead, it adapts, shaping new paths for the invisible currents that keep life flowing underground. Engineers have taken notice of these natural designs. In the 1990s, the Eastgate Center in Harare, Zimbabwe, was built with inspiration from termite mounds, which use similar thermal and airflow patterns. While termites are not ants, the shared principle shows how insect architecture can guide human solutions. Buildings designed this way reduce the need for artificial cooling systems, proving that lessons hidden in the soil can reach far above the ground. The mystery lies in how ants achieve such order without blueprints or leaders. No ant instructs the colony to build a vent here or a shaft there. Each one responds only to local cues: the temperature of the soil, the flow of air against its body, or the smell of gases in a chamber. From these simple responses comes a collective system that breathes like a giant organism, steady and reliable. There is still much we do not know. Scientists continue to explore how colonies adjust when their nests are disturbed, or when climate shifts make conditions harsher. Do ants rebuild the same patterns every time, or do they improvise in ways we have yet to understand? These questions linger, hinting that the secret of their breathing cities is not fully uncovered. The ground above may seem quiet, But somewhere beneath, the walls of Earth are moving air in ways almost impossible to see, keeping alive a city that does not sleep. Adapting to disaster, rain can turn soil into a trap. For an ant colony living underground, a single storm has the power to undo years of construction. Chambers flood, tunnels collapse, and oxygen is cut off. Yet colonies do not simply vanish when water pours down. They respond with movements so coordinated that their survival looks less like chance and more like instinct refined over millions of years. Accounts from South America describe leafcutter ants in floodplains where rivers regularly rise above the land. When water fills their nests, the ants do not scatter. Workers gather their queen, larvae, and fungus gardens and carry them to higher ground. Temporary shelters are carved out of soft soil or hidden under fallen leaves. These makeshift camps can sustain the colony until the flood recedes and rebuilding begins. Disasters take more than one form. Fire sweeping across dry grasslands can burn away food sources and destroy the surface entrances of nests. In Australia, researchers studying Iridomyrmex colonies found that after brush fires, ants quickly reopened buried passageways. The underground chambers remained intact, protected by layers of soil, and within days, the workers were foraging again. The ability to seal and then uncover their entrances helped them survive in landscapes that other animals abandoned. Earthquakes also leave their mark. In regions of Asia where tremors shift the ground, ant nests sometimes collapse in on themselves. Observations have shown that survivors immediately clear blocked tunnels, creating new paths around unstable soil. Unlike rigid structures built by humans, their cities can bend and break without ending the colony's existence. Flexibility is their strength, allowing them to carve order out of sudden chaos. Floods, however, reveal the most dramatic displays of resilience. Fire ants in the southern United States are known for forming living rafts. During hurricanes or heavy rains, thousands of individuals link their bodies together, creating a floating platform that can carry the queen and brood. These rafts drift on swollen rivers for days, directed only by the flow of water, until they reach a dry shore where a new nest can be started. What makes this behavior striking is the balance between individual sacrifice and collective safety. The ants at the bottom of the raft are partially submerged, their bodies shielding the rest. They do not release their grip, even as water washes over them. The colony survives because many endure discomfort, showing how disaster forces cooperation into its most visible form. Not every crisis comes from nature. Human activity also brings destruction. Construction projects dig up soil, agriculture clears fields, and pesticides poison the ground. In urban areas, pavement buries old habitats. Yet ants adjust to these disruptions by moving into cracks in sidewalks, hollow walls, and roadside verges. Their cities change shape, but the drive to build does not vanish. Each obstacle becomes a chance to reimagine where life can continue. Some species rely on relocation more than rebuilding. Argentine ants, for example, form vast supercolonies that stretch across wide areas. When one nest is destroyed, workers shift to another nearby site. This constant mobility prevents a single disaster from wiping out the population. By spreading their numbers across many homes, they turn vulnerability into resilience. Recovery often depends on memory. Ants use chemical trails to return to food sources and mark safe routes. After a disturbance, workers explore damaged areas, leaving new signals for others to follow. Within hours, a reorganized network forms, guiding the colony back to stability. What looks like confusion at first soon becomes a map for survival. Adaptation is not limited to emergencies that happen once. In flood-prone environments, some ants preemptively raise their nests above the waterline, creating tall mounds with sloped sides. In deserts, others dig deeper chambers where heat and fire cannot reach. These preparations suggest that disaster is not an interruption, but an expected part of life, something built into the rhythm of their cities. What remains difficult to explain is how such complex responses arise without planning. No council decides to abandon a flooded chamber or link bodies into a raft. Each ant reacts to immediate danger, and yet the result is a coordinated rescue of the colony. Their survival reveals how intelligence can exist without leaders, written instead in the collective instincts of thousands, In every layer of their world, from soil to rivers to streets, their cities do not simply endure disaster, they transform in its presence, leaving open the question of just how far such resilience can stretch. The mathematics of swarm intelligence. In the late 1980s, computer scientist Marco Dorigo in Brussels set out to solve a problem that had long challenged engineers: how to design algorithms that could find the best path through complex systems. His answer came from ants. He noticed that ants do not search alone. Instead, they leave trails of pheromones that strengthen as more ants follow them. From this simple rule, a pattern emerges that resembles optimization, where the best path is discovered not through planning, but through collective testing. The beauty of this discovery lies in its simplicity. Each ant knows nothing of the whole map, yet together they can identify the shortest route between nest and food. Dorigo developed what he called ant colony optimization, a method that uses the same principle to guide computer programs. By mimicking the chemical trails of ants, digital agents can solve problems in fields as varied as telecommunications, traffic control, and logistics. Patterns like these are not limited to ants alone. Mathematicians have long studied how groups of animals produce complex results from individual actions. Fish schools, bird flocks, and locust swarms all show similar features: alignment, attraction, and separation. These basic rules prevent collisions, keep the group moving together, and allow them to respond instantly to changes. What looks like a wave of motion is in fact the product of simple instructions carried out by each member. Scientists at Princeton University in the 2000s studied golden shiner fish to explore these dynamics. They found that even when only a small percentage of individuals were informed about a target, the entire group moved toward it as if guided by a single mind. This suggested that collective decision-making could emerge without centralized leadership, a principle mirrored in the underground workings of ant cities. Mathematics offers a language to describe these processes. Equations that measure probabilities and feedback loops can capture how signals spread and fade in a colony. For ants, the probability of following a path increases with the amount of pheromone present, but evaporation ensures that unused trails vanish. This balance prevents the colony from locking on to poor choices and instead keeps exploration alive until the best solution is found. Computer scientists have taken these lessons to surprising places. Routing data across the internet, coordinating fleets of delivery trucks, and even managing traffic lights in busy cities have all been influenced by swarm intelligence. In each case, the system does not rely on a single controller, but on local rules that respond to changing conditions, just as ants adjust their paths when obstacles appear. The appeal of these models is that they can handle uncertainty. A colony does not need to predict every possible event. It simply reacts and adapts. Engineers designing algorithms for unpredictable environments, such as space exploration or disaster recovery, see in ants a blueprint for resilience. Small agents following simple instructions can cover more ground and recover from failure better than a rigid, centralized plan. Beyond engineering, the mathematics of swarms has influenced robotics. In 2014, Harvard researchers demonstrated a system of 1,000 small robots called kilobots. Each robot was given only local rules about how to move and communicate. When released, the swarm assembled itself into patterns such as stars and letters without a central command. The display offered a glimpse of how future machines might build, explore, or even repair themselves by imitating the instincts of insects. The most striking feature of swarm mathematics is how scale changes nothing about the rules. Whether 20 ants or 20,000, the same local interactions generate order. This scalability is what allows colonies to grow into vast underground cities without chaos. The formula does not need rewriting as the population expands. It unfolds naturally, guided by feedback between individuals and their environment. Many questions are still unresolved. How exactly do ants avoid gridlock in tunnels, or balance the need for exploration with the risk of spreading too thin? Equations can model these dynamics, but the underlying triggers are still being uncovered through experiments. The mathematics captures the flow, but the biology holds the key to the spark that starts it. The more we learn, the clearer it becomes that intelligence is not always about thought in the human sense. It can also emerge from numbers, probabilities, and rules so simple that no single ant could ever explain them. In this view, mathematics becomes not just a tool for scientists, but the hidden script by which colonies write their cities. Amid that script, encoded in pheromone trails and feedback loops, lies a code we are only beginning to decipher. Lessons for human design. Inside a glass-walled laboratory in Lausanne, Switzerland, researchers once released ants onto a flat arena sprinkled with food crumbs. The insects had no leader, no plan, and no blueprint. Yet within hours, they had carved out efficient foraging paths that mirrored solutions human engineers would normally calculate with computers. That moment revealed a principle of design that is not invented but discovered. Order can emerge without central control. Architects have long been drawn to this puzzle. In the 1970s, Frey Otto, a German architect and engineer, studied soap films and natural branching structures to design lightweight roofs. He showed how forms built by physical forces, like the pull of gravity or the tension of a bubble, often mirrored the problem-solving strategies of living systems. Just as ants leave trails that guide the group, Otto believed human structures could be guided by processes instead of strict master plans. The idea of distributed design took hold in computer science as well. In the late 1980s, researchers in France developed ant colony optimization, an algorithm inspired directly by the way ants lay down and follow chemical trails. The algorithm was first tested on classic mathematical problems, like the traveling salesman puzzle, where the goal is to find the shortest route between many cities. This method has since been used to improve the routing of phone calls, the scheduling of airline flights, and even the movement of data across the internet. What began as a natural behavior in forests and fields became a practical tool shaping modern technology. City planners have also looked toward insect societies for insight. In some parts of Brazil, biologists studying leafcutter ants have mapped underground chambers larger than tennis courts, connected by tunnels that spread like veins. The ants did not draft these networks. They simply dug in response to their neighbors and the flow of air. Urban designers, facing problems of traffic and resource distribution, wonder if similar self-organizing rules could guide the growth of human neighborhoods without forcing rigid grids. Some experiments with computer models show that when virtual agents follow ant-like rules, traffic patterns ease without the need for stoplights at every intersection. The attraction lies in resilience. A city that relies on a single control point can collapse if that hub fails, while a city shaped by many small decisions can adjust more smoothly to sudden changes. Ant colonies survive floods, collapsed chambers, and predator attacks not because they predict every threat, but because their system can bend and recover. Human infrastructure, prone to blackouts or traffic jams, could gain strength from such flexibility. Some of the most direct applications appear in architecture that adapts to the climate. Engineers have studied termite mounds in Zimbabwe, which regulate temperature by channeling air through intricate vents. These studies inspired buildings like the Eastgate Center in Harare, designed by architect Mick Pierce in the 1990s, which uses natural ventilation rather than energy-intensive air conditioning. The ants show that a structure can breathe and respond to its environment rather than fight against it. The lesson also reaches into social design. Ants do not waste time debating who should lead. Each individual follows simple rules, and the collective action produces complexity. Human communities often face gridlock when decisions concentrate in a few hands. Some urban experiments, such as participatory budgeting in cities like Porto Alegre, Brazil, distribute choices to residents and allow large-scale order to rise from small voices. Digital platforms now allow thousands of residents to contribute ideas simultaneously, creating feedback loops that resemble the rapid information sharing seen in ant colonies. The resemblance to ant societies is not exact, but the parallel is striking. There are limits to the comparison. Human lives involve memory, culture, and ethics. Layers of meaning ants do not carry. A city cannot be built by instinct alone, nor should human decision-making be reduced to chemicals on the ground. Yet within the study of these tiny creatures lies a reminder that complexity does not always require complexity of rules. Sometimes the smallest signals, repeated across thousands, create the strongest forms. The next time engineers face problems too vast for a single mind, they might not look upward to grand designs, but downward to the soil, where hidden societies continue to solve their puzzles without ever drawing a map.